Hey, and welcome back to Learn Masters. I'm Sylvia Seres, and my guest is Maria Sääksjärvi, and the topic is digital marketing. Hey, Maria.
Hey, Sylvia.
So this is our second session on digital marketing, and we talked in the first one about the background of the subject, the history, and how a basic process could look like for getting on with digital marketing. In this session, we are going to focus on your favorite examples. Before we do that, we're going to go back to a couple of points that we didn't have the time to cover in the first one, and it's definitions of the most commonly used methods in digital marketing. So we'll basically go through the list, and if you could give us a short explanation of what each of those are. And I would like to spend 5 minutes talking about the myths as well. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Excellent. So if we get started, you listed some of the most common methods for me, and I'd like to get a feel of what they are and how I can think about them in my mix of digital marketing. So it's social media marketing platforms, influencer marketing, email marketing, content marketing, search engine optimization marketing, video marketing, and web ads. Can we go through the list?
Yes. So let's start with the social media marketing. That's basically, as the name says, any kind of marketing you do on social media platforms. And this has become very, very popular. And Facebook, for example, allows any company to sign up on their page to launch ads for their audience. And sometimes the ads are more successful, and sometimes they are less successful. I think we all have experiences when we look at our Facebook feed and wonder, why do I see this ad? I, for example, got an ad for men's underwear, which
you don't need.
it was interesting, but not something that I particularly thought that I would necessarily need. So sometimes you wonder why the companies choose to advertise how they do. But okay,
can I ask you, Maria? Because So I was actually surprised at how efficient it is in selling me a particular kind. I love woolen scarves. And so there is this Chinese company that has somehow found me. I get lots of other kinds of cool scarves as well. I get new, interesting, very efficient ladies' clothing. So, the sort of a dress that looks good in the morning and in the evening, and you can travel, and very nice woolen stuff as well. So they seem to have figured out. I guess it's more simple than I think. I probably bought from somebody and then the others found out about it. Or, I mean, it is surprisingly efficient. Makes me buy things I didn't think I wanted to buy.
No. It works. I mean, that's something that we can say, that it works. I think for a person who has very eclectic interests like I do, I'm interested in so many things and I click on so many different things that they just have a hard time figuring me out. If you're a person with clear preferences, then it's, as you said, it's quite efficient.
Woolen scarves and video recording equipment, and cameras.
Yeah.
But Maria, so what I wanted to ask you about is that I think I and many others are confused a little bit about a difference between a Facebook. So when we say a Facebook campaign, is it something that you publish in the feed of your company and then tag lots of people, and it's that kind of a push, or is it more that you create an ad program?
So these days, it's more efficient to embed it in the platform, like Facebook, and then you pay a small fee to Facebook, and then you can choose the parameters. So let's say that you want to target the females age 25 to 35, living in a specific area, and so forth and so forth. And then you pay to Facebook for that. Of course, you can do things on your own page as well, but it's often less effective, partially because people who follow your page, they probably like you anyway. and they probably buy from you already. So that may not represent a new business opportunity as much as you can do by exposing a person who likes similar things, but hasn't quite bought from you yet to your specific product.
That's a very important point because, let's say in LØRN, we keep pushing things out on our pages. And of course, they keep we are preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
While the real goal is getting the learning habit out to the other people who still don't have it and don't know about the opportunity.
But of course, it also depends a little bit. I mean, your company is in a growth stage. And then that's the absolute best thing that you can do. But if you are, let's say you're a market leader, you're very comfortable in your position, then you don't necessarily have to do that, because then it's more about keeping your existing customers happy. So it also depends on the type of company that you have and the specific phase that you're in. If you are a market leader in a very specific market, you don't have to work as hard. I mean, that's just the truth. And the more specialized your equipment is, let's say you produce medical equipment for healthcare professionals. It's very, very specific, and you are the only one in that niche that you are doing. Let's say you have optimal imaging devices that are just, no one has anything comparable. Well, okay, in that case, you don't have to work as hard. First of all, because your audience is quite limited in the sense that there are only an X amount of people who use that kind of equipment. But if you are a company that has a product that can virtually be used by anyone, then of course you want to reach as many people as possible. And you especially want to reach people who will likely like your product, but has not yet purchased from you.
So that's, I think that was a great, actually new point for me. I was thinking that, you do either one or the other, but very unconscious. But I think one is very good for growth stage and reaching out to new people. The other one is really important for stopping churn and keeping up the audience that you have in an active mode. So that was the social media marketing platforms. And there is a Facebook, there is LinkedIn, there
Twitter,
is
Instagram.
And again, choosing which one you focus on most will depend on where you think your audience is.
Yes, and of course, Instagram is owned by Facebook, so that has changed a little bit the operations of the platform. In the old days, when Instagram started, it was very highly curated. They only allowed a certain amount of ads, and the ads had to be very, well, let's say aesthetically pleasing. It could not be a shoddy ad. They wouldn't allow you to launch that because the founders of Instagram had a very strong vision that Instagram should be very aesthetic. And if your ad didn't meet that aesthetic criteria, they didn't want your money, basically. Now, Facebook always wants your money. So after Facebook bought Instagram, they have allowed any kind of ad to be there. So as long as you pay, you can be there. So that means that nowadays it's really about figuring out what the best outlet would be for your company. Instagram is still mostly visual in nature. So if you have an aesthetic product, something that a designer product, let's say, or something that's very visually appealing, then Instagram will likely be the platform in which you will find people who will appreciate your offering. You can use pictures on Twitter, of course, but Twitter is more about being fun and quirky and being really, there's this notion of real-time marketing where you just basically follow what happens in the world that day and then make some funny, pertinent comments about how those events tie in with your brand. And Twitter is optimal for that. So it also depends a little bit on the type of brand that you have. And it also depends a little bit on the type of, let's say, social media personality that you want your brand to display. And one of my favorite examples here is Netflix, because their social media personality is this movie-loving, crazy kind of fan who is happy to chat about movies and who loves everything new and who's really thrilled to engage in discussions about things like that. So, and that works on Twitter really well. But Netflix is not really about, it's not a beauty brand. It's not a cosmetics brand. Cosmetics brands usually do Instagram because it's very visual.
And it's both about images, but also videos. I have a feeling that people appreciate the video feed on many of these.
Absolutely. And I mean, TikTok really changed the game for videos. What I think is so amazing is how you can make people excited about something in 15 seconds. If we would have talked about, let's say just 10 years ago, if we would have talked about selling something in 15 seconds, it would have been, wow, crazy. That's really have to be like, oh, that's so short. Like, how can we do that? It was only like, these kinds of conversations were only had in the context of Super Bowl ads that were so ridiculously expensive that you really had to limit yourself to that amount. So it was not about wanting to limit. It was more about, we can't afford more than 15 seconds. But these days, it's more about the bite-size content. It's really about being so incredibly on target, on point with what you're doing that people will get it in 15 seconds.
You will go back to these examples. I actually wanted to chat with you with some of the new, I don't even know if it's game marketing or gamification, but Pokemon, for example, or stuff. I love the way that they blended the physical world with the digital world. And I wonder why they missed the opportunity to keep going with that. It kind of died out. But let's get back to that later. I want to hear you more about the other main methods. So what's this thing called influencer marketing?
Yes. So in the old days, influencer didn't exist. We had celebrities and we had regular people. But then with the advent of reality TV and social media, came the concept of influencer marketing. An influencer is, I think you can call them celebrities, but they are not movie stars or the kind of celebrities that we would traditionally think of. They are the kind of celebrities who come to the forefront, not necessarily because they have a specific talent, but because they're willing to expose themselves to a certain extent. And it started with the Kardashians, obviously. There's a well-known Kardashian Effect that shows that any product that is placed in the hands of a Kardashian will immediately get more followers on social media, will get more exposure. It's a very, very strong effect.
Maria, can I just ask you? So I wonder if this is an age thing. I never understood that Kardashian thing. There's like zero appeal, but obviously people do because of the effect that you just described.
Yeah. No.
So and what are we missing? People like me.
I first of all, I think we're too old. But second of all, we didn't grow up with reality TV. It wasn't the kind of thing. We grew up with Beverly Hills. Actually, my mother, she still thinks that when she watches TV, she wants to watch beautiful people because that's what she's paying for. And that's just her whole mantra. And that's what TV was. It was very glamorous. It had nothing to do with real life. I mean, it was supposed to be aspirational in some way. But now we have this whole generation that has grown up with reality TV. And now it's not about glamour. It's about authenticity. It's really about completely different things. And that means that influencers who essentially are regular people, but who are willing to give you a window into their lives, they're supposedly real lives, they gain this almost cult-like status among people. So they become the celebrities of today. And many, I don't know if we can call them older generation celebrities. Let's take an example. For example, I was a huge fan of Madonna growing up. You know, I absolutely adored her. I still think she's fantastic. But it would never, ever occur to her to communicate with a fan directly on a page or on let's say, Instagram. It would never occur to her to meet and greet after a show. I mean, it just didn't happen, you know? There was supposed to be a distance between the celebrity and the regular person. That's how it was. But these days, it's completely different. That distance has shrunk. And now you're supposed to be, if you're a celebrity, you're supposed to be in constant connection with your audience, constantly commenting on things and being in a completely different way approachable, if we can use that concept. I don't think the Kardashians are approachable. I mean, they have bodyguards everywhere, but just the concept of approachability. And it also has this element that anyone can be a celebrity. And in the old days, it wasn't like that. I mean, I grew up in Finland. I would never have dreamed of becoming a celebrity. I mean, it just didn't exist. But these days, yeah, it does exist.
I think I've seen also ads being done for, you know, big brands like, let's say the Norwegian Tran. It's a big thing in Norway, fish oil. And there was this very informally made video of a video recording with a young lady and one of the top sportsmen. And, you know, he was going to do, well, how are we going to do this? And, you know, I'm going to do some heavy lifting or something. It's, no, that's not how we do it. So she filmed themselves, you know, in the kitchen running around.
Yes, exactly.
And that was the ad. And so I think that as you say, authentic, or this, at least this myth of being a very real-time, natural, not over-directed. You know, it's this faster, lean movement. And I think we're getting there. I think it's just there is a hidden kind of side to that medal. I was on a bay for some work about a year ago. And, you know, and I was wondering, it looked like all the girls looked the same. They were all wearing yellow short sweaters, same style long hair, same style high-rise jeans, same kind of extensions. And, you know, so it must be some of these influencers have a bigger grip on our reality than we realize.
Yes, and especially now, because they are influencers, which are like Kardashians and the like, and then there are micro influencers who have a local audience. And micro influencers, especially because they are more targeted, they have a more local audience, are very, very influential when it comes to influencing a specific target group that they appeal to.
But the companies could create their own both internal and external micro-influencers. And I think this is a really underestimated thing. I see many people try to do this with a podcast now, but I think that what you really want to do is have a very strong positioning. You know, they start a podcast about sustainability, and that's every company's job now. But, you know, how do you create that unique position?
Yeah, and it's also about, you know, reality shows are scripted. But the whole thing is that they're supposed to be seen as being unscripted. So it's not really reality, but it's an illusion of reality. And anyone can create an illusion of reality. But you will succeed if you have a script. And I know this sounds very paradoxical, but everything that seems real is usually engineered. So you shouldn't try to think that influencer marketing is about being authentic. No, it's about giving the impression of being authentic.
Through an engineered position.
Yes, correct.
Very, very interesting. So then we talked about email marketing. Let's do that quickly.
That's very traditional. I mean, basically companies reach out to customers who agree to be contacted by them, either to provide information, to provide news, or to give them specific offers.
And you need an email list. That's the basic asset there.
Yeah.
And it's the trouble is maintaining that and having automated tools that help you use that list efficiently.
Yeah, but it's again, I mean, these are people who already buy from you, people who have agreed to be on your list. So the potential there is more about maintaining the relationship and making sure that you're just informing them about campaigns and about things like that. It's not really about gaining new customers per se.
No, but I have to ask you a question. So, I have several email addresses, and one of them I use for all the personal stuff and all the newsletter stuff. And I have to keep pruning that email all the time. I unsubscribe daily, basically.
Yeah.
So what's the trick for, not being unsubscribed from? How do you, is there a frequency thing? Is there a content thing? Are we getting into content marketing now?
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. A lot of people, again, because our attention spans are short, we get easily bored. So if you just keep sending information about campaigns, I mean, there's nothing new. We've seen that. So eventually we'll just figure that we'll unsubscribe because there's nothing new for us in those specific messages. And especially if we get a lot of them and there's really nothing new coming our way, of course we're going to unsubscribe because that's just spam. So I think you have to be careful with email marketing, how you use it. Only use it when you really have something to inform people. Because if you do it too frequently and you don't have any new content, it will be perceived as spam. And I mean, the amount of emails people get these days is so ridiculously high that it's just, I don't think that should be where you put most of your money, because it's very difficult for you to gauge your response. So, okay, somebody opened your newsletter. What does that mean? Sometimes I just click on things by mistake, and then I'm like, oh yeah, and then I delete it. You have no information about how relevant the content is. There's so little that you know on the basis of email marketing as compared with the other tools that we have available these days.
Yeah, I noticed with myself, so there are basically, 2-3 newsletters that I really appreciate. And they are, what's common for them is that I have this fear of missing out. I feel that if I delete this one, I don't have the time to read it, but I just want to know that it's come to me and there is the option of learning something important from it. And so it's getting to that position. But I think that's, again, a very high requirement on the person who's writing them, content-wise and basically knowledge-wise. Yes.
I mean, again, coming back to my example of musicians, I really like this Lorde, the New Zealand-based singer. I think she's really great. She doesn't send out news very often, but when she does, they are amazing. I mean, her mom is a poet, so her writing is just almost poetic. It's almost like you get it and you are like, the way that she uses her words is just fantastic. So, but she doesn't do that often. it's only now because she's going to be releasing a new album in August that I got 2 of these wonderful, curated, beautiful, poetic packages into my inbox.
And they gave you joy. They gave you something reading.
Yes.
Right? High
because
value.
They are so beautiful. And again, she's not really selling her album as much as talking about summer, how amazing it is to be able to go to the beach. And then at the end, yeah, by the way, my new album will be out.
Yeah.
So, and it's very personal. It's very personal, and it's almost like she's giving us I get a glimpse into her diary. But again, she doesn't send them out often. And that's also the trick, know your audience. And she's the kind of person who doesn't want to spam her audience unless she really has something to say.
I'm trying to look through my email box now. So I simply can't remember. There is a woman who does something similar like that. She's called Maria something Eastern, and brain. It's not brain teasers,
Yes!
brain snacks.
I love it. I'm on the email listing too. Yeah.
You know, she writes about books, and she writes about, and she makes you think. And she writes once or twice a week, and I love it. And similarly, there is an email list from something called CB Insights, so probably corporate business or something like that. Insights, Silicon Valley based. There is an Indian guy called Anand, who was the first writer of these emails. Now there is a bigger team. And they write about venture capital and entrepreneurship and tech. They are very good. They have very good data. So they always give you some interesting graphs. I feel like, I learn most of the stuff I need to learn there. And they write funny. So every email starts with a really funny topic. And there is always a tongue-in-cheek, graph or they always make me smile. And I never spend more than 30 seconds on it, but I would not be without it in my email. So I think but both Maria and Anand and this Lord, I think they found a unique voice. And I think we underappreciate how important the strength of that unique voice is, both in email marketing, but also all other marketing. Yeah,
and I also think we underestimate that it should be personal. I mean, when you read the newsletter from Maria, I can see what kind of person she is. I get a feel for, I can imagine her in my head, although I have never met her.
Exactly.
And the same thing with Lord. But a lot of marketing in the old days used to be have professional content, very standardized writings, and that just doesn't work anymore because it's boring and it's not personal in any way. It doesn't feel relevant. So
I think you're into something very important, because with this digital and also hyper-personalized, you need to find a voice, I think, as a company or as an individual that makes people want to hear from you.
Yes.
Because, you inspire them, you move them, you teach them, you do something with them. Yeah. Other than that, you have to have an absolutely mind-blowingly good offers in that email that you can't, miss.
But a lot of times companies feel it's risky to be personal. And like Anand, I think I got one of his emails from CB Insights, and it said something like, "I love you, Anand," and I was like,
he always signs "I love you, Anand."
Yeah, and I was like, no, you don't, Anand. You don't know me. Like,
there's a long discussion of that in the newsletter.
But a lot of companies, they would never go there. They would never, ever go there. They would never take the risk of saying something personal. They keep it very, very clear cut, very textbook in many ways.
He's playing a risky game. I agree with you, and we're not going to get through our examples otherwise. But I just have to make a comment, because at one point he was showing they love bad graphs, and so there was an email about how marketing people don't understand numbers. And he was showing a graph where, the title of the graph said something about, 1/4 of the market did, and you see very clearly it's 1/3 of the market on the pie chart. And so it is a risky game because he's very, very provocative in many ways.
I know.
And he's quoting people when they make, a really stupid comment, and this could be big corporate CEOs. But that's why it's interesting, right? Because all the polished stuff.
I know. But that's the problem, that most companies, they don't know how to do that. Exactly. They don't know how to be quirky. They don't know how to be personal. And they only know how to be corporate. Mm. And that doesn't appeal to people anymore. Mm. People want personality. People want you to be someone. I mean, in the old days, you didn't have to take sides. These days, you have to take sides. And you have to stand for something, because otherwise you stand for nothing. And in the old days, you were supposed to stand for nothing. But these days, it doesn't work like that anymore.
Oh, I think we could go long way here now on ethical marketing. Yeah. And especially now in the Pride Month that was.
Yeah.
There were some companies that went very far in that direction. Yeah. But I think in the interest of time, Maria, we'll get back to that later. What is so let's do very quickly content marketing, SEO marketing, and video marketing.
Content marketing is basically any kind of content that you produce for your brand. And I think it is. In the old days, again, it was about having polished text, no spelling mistakes, just a very, very traditional kind of copy. But these days, it's more about having interesting and relevant content. And yes, it is often quirky. It can be offbeat. But it's supposed to trigger something. SEO is just a search engine optimization. So it's just about how you make sure that when somebody Googles, for example, your product, that you come up on top and not at the very bottom. Usually it involves giving Google a bag of money. So
yeah, and I think that's become a little bit too much of a science. So
yeah, it's over-engineered.
Content marketing is very much about the quality of your content. If you don't have good content, then please don't do content marketing. It's about teaching people something through your content. I think whole LØRN is sort of a content marketing project, but for the whole society. And when it comes to SEO, I think, Maria, that there is a whole industry that's growing in the shadows of this that I am not sure I really like, but it has to do with figuring out the algorithms of Google and Facebook and so on, and then in a way hacking them and getting on the top. And the whole point of these algorithms is to try to give people, sometimes paid, but also relevant content. So, if you create very relevant content, hopefully with some money perhaps, you would get to the top. And don't try to put in hidden words and all kinds of other weird things, right?
Yeah, but there's also the thing that people don't like being fooled. So if you put in keywords that are not really applicable, so I go to a Google search, I put in some keywords, and then some names pop up, and then I click on it and I'm like, what the heck? What is this? Why did this come up? It's not relevant at all. And then I just get annoyed, And of course now Google already has image search in place. It's not that widely used yet, but it is available. And then we have another ball game there again, because that's going to be engineered too. I don't think it's too engineered yet, because it's not widely used yet. But I'm absolutely confident that in the future, because people are much more compelled by images than by text. That's why voice search is also so incredibly popular. But image search will start to become more and more important.
And I think people don't even know how to use image search. So basically, when I go on Google and one of those choices is images, that's giving me then all the images related to my keyword. But I guess there is still a keyword. How do I give them an image to search?
No, it's a different. You need to use a different browser. It's not that one. It's another.
It's a different page.
Yeah, yeah. So
and I give them an image, and they give me related things.
Yes. So let's say, for example, after my grandmother was very, very close to me, and when she passed, it was devastating in many ways. But one of the things that I wanted to do, I wanted to keep. My grandmother loved jewelry and nice clothing and things like that. And of course, I got a big part of that. And sometimes, there would be a missing earring or something. And then I could upload it on Google image search and see if I find any hits for it, so that I could hopefully buy a pair.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. But you can do image search for anything. So let's say hypothetically you travel to Spain and you see something really nice outside someone's home. You take a picture of it. Then you can basically query that picture to Google and see where you can find a similar thing.
Very cool. I'll try that.
So yeah. But it's not widely used yet.
No.
So it hasn't been over-engineered at this point. Yeah. But I think it will increase in importance in the future, just because we are incredibly visual as people.
Yeah. In my life, I often see a piece of art or something, and what is that? Who made that? That would be a wonderful way to figure out. So, and video marketing, that is already much used, but not as a search thing, but rather than as a push thing, right?
Yeah, and video marketing is actually very, very efficient because any kind of engagement report that we can see on social media shows that people are way more engaged with video content than they are with any other type of content. Mm. So if you can create a video of your product, that's usually much better. But again, a short video.
60-second video. And I think one thing that we've learned in LØRN is that it doesn't have to be as over-engineered as people think. It could be basically a set of 6 good images with some nice, interesting text related to each of them. And today, pretty much any 20-year-old can create this for you.
Yes.
While before you had to have a very kind of rare digital video skilled person.
No, absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Easy to make, very, very efficient in marketing, as you say. And the last thing... Sorry?
It's the prime driver of engagement. All the studies show that. So.
And the last one is web advertising. So just very briefly, what's that?
That's basically just placing an ad on, for example, Amazon's webpage, on Google's webpage, any web page that you think could drive traffic to your web page.
It is placing a product in Amazon catalog, or it's paying them money for you to put a banner, or so typically in the newspapers in Norway it would be the biggest online newspapers, for example.
Yes. But actually, Google they get a lot of money from placed web ads. So basically, imagine that your web page is a space that you can sell, and then you can sell, I don't know, maybe 1/5 of that space to people who think that you can drive traffic to their website. So let's say that I think that the New York Times would be great way to get people to come to LØRN's webpage. Then LØRN could place an ad on New York Times and get traffic directed from there to their webpage.
Very, very good. Maria, we are going back to myths in our next conversation and the pitfalls. But I really want you to now we have very short time, but we talked about examples as long as we went. But if we could talk briefly about why do you love Spotify as an example? What about Heinz Ketchup and TikTok?
Yeah.
And what about Fitbit Stories?
So first of all, I actually do not use Spotify. I use Apple Music. So the reason why I like Spotify is because of their excellent marketing, not because I'm a user of the specific product. But Spotify, they are targeting millennials. And every single thing that they do is so incredibly customized and tailored for that specific market, down to the colors that they use on their web page, to the fun, quirky ads that make music references and are often very funny. They really know their audience so well. And they are giving them a lot of things. So remember, this is the generation that didn't grow up with mixtapes. Well, guess what? Spotify gives you the chance to create a digital mixtape and share it with a friend. They give you the chance. They have this lovely thing called Only You. And they ask you to imagine which artists you would invite to a dinner party. And then on that basis, they create a playlist for you. And again, it's a very simple question. Who would you invite for a dinner party? I mean, it's a wonderful exercise in imagination for anyone who likes music. And then the playlist is automatically created for you on that basis. You can share it with others. I mean, it's just such an incredibly, they have so much knowledge about their audience, and they really, really try to meet their audience's needs every single step of the way. And that's what I think makes them so incredibly good at what they're doing. And this also comes down to they are incredibly consistent. Everywhere that they are, the message is the same. So, and that's something that I think a lot of companies, when they do traditional ads, for example, they tend to diverge from whatever you see on their webpage. It shouldn't. Everything should be coherent, consistent, and compelling.
And then they also have these communities and blogs, and as you say, you know, they keep working on you and giving you something, and you return it by a loyal usage.
Yes, and it's also like they take an interest in you, you know? They want to learn about you. They want to learn about your preferences, and they measure and they track and they pivot and adapt. So,
very good, cool. What about ketchup?
Yeah, so this is another example that I love because, you know, Halloween last year was a bit of a bummer because of COVID. You couldn't really go outside, and a lot of the festivities that were typically associated with that were, you were not able to really engage in that in the same way. But one of the things that Heinz knows is that almost every household has a bottle of ketchup. It's one of those basic staple items that everyone has. So they asked people to come up with a Halloween story involving ketchup. And if you came up with a really good story, they gave you a limited edition of something called Heinz Blood Ketchup. And it ties in with the Halloween theme so well. And this campaign was a fantastic success. And what I really like about it is it really engaged people from all ages. So you had children asking their grandparents to come up with a story involving Heinz ketchup. And people were so creative. They came up with these really crazy murder stories to really lovely family stories. And that's really, the only thing that they did was they gave people an incentive to be creative themselves. They just planted the seed and it sprung into this amazing, wonderful, blooming tree. And that's really what I like about that.
But to me, it was also a very brave campaign because basically they used TikTok, if I understand you correctly, as the main channel. Yes. And they are not exactly, versed in TikTok to start with.
No, but that was clever because this gave them a way in. And this gave them so many followers that they previously didn't have, precisely because they chose something that wasn't their traditional market channel. So sometimes these kinds of risks, they definitely pay off.
I'm just thinking of the brave, head of marketing who said yes to a proposal like this, because usually they would say,
Yeah. But
Very cool.
in some ways, COVID was also a way. A lot of companies were willing to take risks during COVID because there was very little you could do in terms of traditional marketing. A lot of the traditional outlets were not available. So then that tilted the balance a little bit for some to be willing to take risks.
Very cool. Maria, in 1 minute, Fitbit Stories.
Yeah, so Fitbit Stories, this is something that I like because they bring the voice of the customer to the forefront. So instead of trying to sell something, they are just having people tell their stories about how Fitbit changed their lives. And they're opening up a dialogue and a platform for talking about something that can be very sensitive, weight loss, fitness. And they had people with disabilities talk about how fitness, how their technology helped them overcome things and really realize their fitness goals. So it's really a story about overcoming obstacles with the use of a specific product, without necessarily pushing the product at the forefront, but pushing the voice of the customers and their stories and allowing them to be heard.
I'd love to do that with LØRN, by the way. So, have one, say, 10th of our cases recorded, nominated by customers or by students, by readers, by listeners on, what's their most interesting learning from the past 12 months. And maybe finding a way to also, produce that in a more distributed way. So I think this idea of, crowdsourcing, crowd creation is something we need to look at much, much more. And companies need to learn from things like Fitbit. Maria, thank you so very much for
my pleasure.
Session number 2. And we'll continue with the myths and more on concrete examples in the next one. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.